There are more single people than ever before.
I'm not going to be with someone unless it enhances things.
How do you feel about dating apps? No, really.
Complicated.
Chaotic.
Is it right for these apps to use your desire for romance and love to make more money?
Dating apps are designed to hook users.
Is that ethical?
Nope. Dating apps can feel like a game. Swiping left or right, matching and unmatching.
Oh, what the hell?
There's an emerging trend of people using AI on dating apps. Would you try it?
There is always going to be a gap between who we are in person and who it is that we present online.
All right, here's the problem with dating apps.
I don't want to be on the dating apps anymore.
Why are dating apps so bad?
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
There are more single people than ever before, not only in Canada, but around the world. That's according to relationship scientists. Some people are actually choosing to stay single and tell us they're happy with that.
I'm not going to be with someone unless it enhances things. I'm very happy in my current life.
Singlehood is a growing trend among 20 to 30-year-olds regardless of their gender. This data comes from Statistics Canada and shows that there's a record drop in the number of people who are living together as a couple. So why have things changed so much since the 80s? Well, fewer people are getting married, divorce has become more acceptable in some cultures, and solo parenting is on the rise. The researchers we spoke to also say that people are delaying romantic relationships. For some, it's to focus on their careers, and for women in particular who have more financial independence than ever before, the stereotype of needing someone to pay the bills is on its way out. And Cher said it.
One day you should settle down and marry a rich man. And I said, Mom, I am a rich man, you know?
We don't need a partner anymore to have a credit card or own property or, we can do all those things ourselves.
But you've probably come across headlines like these. They often paint a bleak future for singles. Now, for years, most of the studies focus specifically on relationship status in comparison to well-being.
I think what happened is that sort of gave rise to people making assumptions and stereotypes about single people.
Researchers have now discovered that those studies about singles not being happy had very little to do with their relationship status. And so they're looking into who is single, why they want to be single, and if in fact they're thriving. In 2021, psychologists from the University of Toronto surveyed more than 900 single people. They were from around the world with different cultural backgrounds and sexual orientations, and were between 20 to 59 years old. They were put into 3 groups based on how they feel about their overall happiness, their relationship status, and their attachment style. The first group is the happiest being single. They value independence and seek solitude. But for them, some were less satisfied with their overall lives when compared to the other groups. The second group is the least happy about being single and their life overall. The researchers describe them as anxiously attached. The people in this group crave connection and tend to be needy, according to researchers. The last group scored the highest in overall life satisfaction, and some were more comfortable with being single compared to group 2. They're happy to be single, but they're also open to being in a relationship.
One of the themes that comes through in that third group in particular is that there's actually not a lot of difference between the kinds of people who are happy single and the kinds of people who are happy in relationship. If they're in a romantic relationship, they're good at maintaining that connection with a romantic partner. But if they're single, they're good at maintaining those relationships with their friends and their family.
So it sort of goes back to that cliche. You can't love someone until you love yourself.
Love yourself.
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
Yeah, how many times have you heard that? The other researcher we spoke to says society's still set up to value romantic partnerships and marriage.
There's evidence showing that children as young as 2 and 3, they figure out these ideas of partnership and they play house. We also have evidence showing that children very young learn this about in terms of gender roles in household dynamics.
And even though there's been a rise in non-traditional relationships, movies and TV still portray singlehood as sad and lonely. Gomez says it's because of a cultural lag. It takes society a while to catch up and let go of stereotypes.
We see this with something simple as, the holidays that we really celebrate. So Valentine's Day, for example.
And then there's Christmas movies. We know the plot points. Person is single at Christmas, they find love, and their life is infinitely better.
I think that partnership is sort of important to a lot of people, but at the same time, as a society, we have sort of put out the message that that's the only pathway to happiness and that everyone needs to be partnered like ASAP, which I think is what we're trying to debunk here.
I have been in like a couple of relationships before, which were like pretty long term. There was a certain pressure to get married as soon as you could.
Let's talk about that. What about when you're under pressure from friends and family? Gurme says the challenges that single people experience are less about themselves and more about how loved ones treat them. Her research shows this lack of support and discrimination from those closest is what really threatens single people's happiness.
There's always the question, at family gatherings where it's like, oh, are you seeing anyone?
Gurme says that's a question we should stop asking to try to change the stigma around singlehood.
It essentially sends this implicit message that that's what's important in life and that is an important goal for them that they should be trying to achieve.
At the end of the day, I think I'm much more in a space of I'm not going to be with someone unless it enhances things, because I think something that's too difficult or more complicated is inconvenient and it's not improving my life. So if that means me being single, then that's totally fine. As much as, I want companionship and to meet someone, I also have tons of great people in my life that are on similar paths.
Some dating apps like these claim you'll have a higher chance at finding love if you pay for their features. But should you? The dating app researchers and users we spoke to said these companies are doing ethically questionable things to get you to pay.
Is it right for these apps to use your desire for romance and love, to use your loneliness to make more money?
Jermaine, who researched Hinge and its algorithm for a year, agrees that some dating apps are designed to hook users. He says Hinge will use your profile photos to rank you based on your looks as soon as you join. Then he says the app will limit the amount of people it shows you that are in your same league to keep you frustrated.
I've heard from lots of people that they feel that right at that moment when you run out of your allotment of swipes for the day, the next person that you see is the most attractive person you've seen all day long on the app. That could be a coincidence, or it could be because these apps are using human beings as pawns to manipulate people to increase their bottom line.
We reached out to Hinge for an interview about these tactics, but they declined. Some people we spoke to said similar things have happened to them. They felt pressure to pay to find better matches.
One of them lines up 3 people that have liked you already, but if you want to message them and swipe on them, you have to pay.
Hinge and Bumble, I do think that they hold back a lot of the conventionally attractive people for those people that pay. It's scary because what goes into those decisions, who is deemed attractive enough to be the sparkly hidden match. Whenever I got to see the matches, it was always white people. I never ever saw people of color. So that's concerning in itself that an app is choosing what races are going to be more attractive than others.
The dating app researchers I spoke to said these companies are very secretive when it comes to sharing information about their algorithms. Jermaine calls them a black box because it's impossible to know how they work. And even though we have limited insight into these algorithms, he says it can change the way we act and how we think about ourselves.
The fact that we know that we're living our lives under the watch of an algorithm affects our behavior. If you think that the algorithm has decided that you're unattractive, it doesn't matter whether that's actually true. If you believe it, that's going to affect your feelings about yourself.
Now, when it comes to Tinder, take this 2022 investigation. It found that people in these countries who were older had to pay up to 6 times more to use the app's premium features than users who were younger.
Is that ethical?
Nope. And I think it's capitalizing on that pain point, that loneliness, or the need, the insecurity, or the desire, and making money off it.
Tinder ended this practice just before the investigation was published. So how much money are people actually paying for dating apps?
There are people who have spent thousands of dollars on dating apps because they've been on them for a long time.
I looked up the price of some basic subscriptions. Here's a weekly breakdown. But the prices can go way higher. Tinder Select costs $499 a month, and the League has a VIP option for $999 a week. All of that's in US dollars.
It's kind of crazy because what they charge for a month now used to be what they charged for 6 months when I first started paying for dating apps.
In the US, about 1/3 of dating app users say they've paid to use them or one of their features. And men are more likely to have done this than women. Of the nearly 5,000 respondents, this survey found that people aged 30 and older are more likely to have paid for apps.
Presumably because older users are going to be a little bit more desperate, a little bit more willing to pay.
So is it worth paying paying for dating apps? Well, the people we spoke to say it depends on what you're looking for and if you're willing to spend some extra cash.
I feel like you definitely make better connections and it's a little less stressful. Most of the paid subscriptions already show you who's already swiped on you.
Who can afford paying for something extra right now in this economy? I'm just trying to pay rent. I can't pay for dating apps either.
Now, this Vancouver dating coach says paying for an app doesn't mean you'll find love quicker or easier. But she said if you actually want to pay, just stick to one app and pay for the first tier.
It's that sense of like the more you pay, it gives the illusion that you're more committed, that you're going to find that person, or that the algorithms are going to be better fit for you. I think it's got that illusion of FOMO. Like if I don't do this, then I'm going to miss out on love, or I'm going to miss this opportunity. If I'm exposed to more, seeing more, I should be able to have better choice. And that's not always the case.
That's because having too many options can actually make it harder to choose.
You get access to so many more people, you stop valuing those interactions as much. Like there's plenty of fish in the sea becomes like really real.
Haley says at the end of the day, it's not how much you pay for apps, but how your profile looks that might get you better dates. And it seems like soon AI and dating apps will help you with that.
I'm not sure how to put this. I usually go for 7s, but I guess I'll settle for a 10.
Super smooth stuff, but not entirely original. That was from an ad I saw on TikTok for an AI app that generates pickup lines. The first thing that came to mind was, could people catfish their personality with AI? That might be on the extreme end, but there's an emerging trend of people using AI on dating apps. I tried one of these risk coaches to see what it would suggest. Honestly, not the worst. But is it fair to enhance your personality using AI when you're dating online? I started by speaking with 2 researchers who study dating apps. They say these risk coaches aren't a bad idea given how exhausting online dating can be.
I mean, I speak to myself as someone who has his own anxieties with respects to, dating and sex and maybe what's the right thing to say.
Imagine going through the online dating experience and having an AI coach there to kind of provide you with guidance, suggestions to help you through the process.
Dating apps like Bumble already have prompts to help people chat better. But in the last year, a bunch of AI chat assistants debuted in app stores, going one step further and helping you flirt. Would you try it?
I think that could be something useful. But if it's like whispering into one side versus the other, I think then that could be very dangerous and manipulative in a way that you don't ever want to start a relationship off of.
One of the more popular apps, Riz, told us that it had 1 million active users in the past month and 3.5 million users since it launched last spring. A similar app called Your Move AI told me they get about 200,000 people on their website every month. So how much should you be leaning on AI for potential dates?
A lot of research shows people rely on friends for help with opening lines. And so is AI really different from friends when it comes to opening lines? If you are communicating solely via AI or you're really being assisted by AI, I definitely think that could be a form of catfishing, because then when you get in person, the conversation is not going to be the same. And that is ultimately a violation of those expectations.
I mean, are we catfishing our personality using the About Me section right now, or on our Instagram, or on anything? Like, there is always going to be a gap between who we are in person and who it is that we present online.
Both researchers say there's a lot of pressure to get that first message right on the apps, especially for men.
AI offers a way to take some of that pressure away. I think it's also worth considering that a lot of this technology is created and generated by men.
Developers I interviewed said their apps are only meant to be an aid.
Let's say the conversation is fizzling out and you don't know how to get it back. That's when risk comes in. It's up to the user to disclose that if they want.
How transparent do you think people should be about their use of it on other people?
I mean, as transparent as people that have like a prosthetic leg should be transparent about the fact that they're using a prosthetic leg to walk. I don't feel like anybody should be obligated to disclose that they're an introverted or that like they're drinking a beer to overcome the fact that they're introverted and want to be more sociable in a sociable setting.
So do these apps work? Well, it depends on how you measure that. Success could be getting the courage to message someone first, or it could be landing the first date.
Quite a few people that have told me that they've found relationships through that. If I extrapolate that forward, the relationships multiplied by marriages, multiplied by whatever. Like, I'm going to be responsible for at least a couple of kids at this point.
AI could also change online dating in a whole other way, how people find matches.
Some startups in particular are looking at ways that you could actually train an AI chatbot on your personality and then send the chatbot out to interact with other chatbots on your behalf and then come back with some recommendations.
Now, that researcher says the AI she's talking about would need more data about you, but that comes with more risks.
Beyond sort of privacy concerns, there are concerns about bias, discrimination, and integrity. Platforms historically had leveraged racial data to effectively understand that, like white people seem to date white people. And so if people aren't expressing a preference, maybe our algorithm should sort of push people in that direction because it generally leads to more matches. But I think here, AI presents a potential problem, right, in the ways that we might use certain data for matchmaking and how that limits opportunities.
Right now, AI knows who to serve you up, but it can't actually predict whether you'll be compatible with that person. At the same time, companies have taken AI one step further, developing chatbots for people to date. This app launched last year, and it's exclusively for AI dating. It works just like a dating app, but the people aren't people. They're AI characters and personalities. And the company says each one has their own backstory. We asked Blush how many active users they have, but they told us that they don't disclose active user numbers or growth trajectory. On its website, the company says people can use their app to practice dating and then apply those lessons in the real world.
I think if we're talking about using it to help people connect to other people, that's the path that I would be more inclined to pursue. I don't think the solution to someone who's maybe lonely or looking for connection is to say, okay, replace some of those human needs with technology instead.
It's important to underscore that loneliness is an absolute epidemic. We might think talking to a chatbot is kind of silly because we have our mom to call or we have friends we're going to go see at a drag show later. But when you don't have someone to talk to, these can be meaningful opportunities.
Dating apps showed up on our phones more than 10 years ago. Now, AI might just be what pushes dating into a whole new territory.
How do you feel about dating apps? No, really. Comical.
Complicated.
Chaotic. And look, I get it. We've been doing this dating app thing for a long time now, over 10 years. Now, some of you might have found what you were looking for on the apps. A 2020 survey of nearly 5,000 adults in the US found that 12% have been in a committed relationship with someone they met online or married them. But for anyone still single and mingling, it can feel exhausting. And now we're seeing how all of that swiping might be hurting people's mental health. Let's look at another study. It surveyed 500 adults in the US between the ages of 18 and 54 who had used at least one dating app in the last year. Nearly 80% of people who answered said they dealt with some form of emotional fatigue or burnout with online dating. We heard the same thing from people we spoke with.
I think it's the lack of actually dates produced from the dating app for me that causes the burnout.
I'm talking to this person, it's so much fun and everything's going great. And then sometimes it just comes to a very abrupt halt. So it's like, oh, what the hell? It just causes so much burnout from experiencing that a couple of times over and over again.
We spoke to psychotherapists and counselors who also said they're seeing more patients who feel burnt out from the apps.
I would say almost 90% of my patients who are single and on dating apps have experienced burnout in some capacity.
What burnout in the dating apps is looking like is wanting a relationship, but honestly just downloading the app and then quickly deleting it or not engaging with the app at all, dreading going on dates, just not really taking action steps even though they want a relationship.
Some dating apps like Bumble and Hinge have acknowledged that dating app burnout is real. But what exactly is burnout? It's when it feels like you've reached your capacity. Siddiqui says that could be physically, mentally, or emotionally. And it doesn't matter what area of your life triggers it.
There's just such a wide range of symptoms in the way that burnout presents itself, which makes it sometimes harder for people to recognize. It looks like mental fatigue, compassion fatigue, low tolerance, more snapping at people. That's kind of the emotional, component of it.
I just feel like with anything, when you invest too much of your energy and you're not getting the outcome that you want, you kind of need to take a step back and just take a breather. So I'm doing that right now.
And let's be honest, it might be hard to take a break because dating apps are designed to keep you hooked. It's a business after all.
Part of what the algorithm is trying to do is trying to show you matches that you might be interested, but you're also going to get some that maybe aren't as good because you have to swipe through those to stay on there. And so burnout itself comes from that need on the app's part to have a functioning business model.
In other words, dating apps can feel like a game. Writing a witty bio, adding a funny prompt, choosing your perfect photos, then swiping left or right, matching and unmatching, maybe even buying a profile boost.
The gamification leads to burnout because it doesn't feel like there's a genuine connection being sought. Burnout comes from kind of a lack of romanticism almost with the technology.
In her research, Caduto says she's seen the way dating apps and technology affect our everyday lives. Like if you're having a conversation with someone, but in the back of your mind, you're worried about when you'll get that next match or message. And you keep checking your app notifications while at school or work. And she says social media also makes us more tired of the apps.
All right, here's the problem with dating apps.
I don't want to be on the dating apps anymore. It's not fun.
Why are dating apps so bad?
As you see people really upset on TikTok, on Twitter, Instagram, across all these social platforms, you're getting the same message over and over that it's not working for anyone or it's not really good for anyone.
Now, it's also about what we choose to do on the apps and what others do to us. Raise your hand if you've been ghosted.
Along comes Ted, a Libra who likes puppies and offers to take me on a sunset sail. Until he ghosts me.
I always like to think that when someone is ghosting, usually they're also experiencing overwhelm. I think most people don't choose to ignore people, but usually they don't have the skills to communicate how they're feeling.
Then there's the robotic conversations we've all memorized, matches that fizzle out before even planning the first date. It can feel like no one's really making an effort anymore.
The biggest issue I see with young people on dating apps is that they don't give relationships enough of a chance to blossom because of this allure of there's so many options. So if you know that there's more options, once things get hard, you're more likely to give up on that option and just move on to the next.
Another dating app researcher we spoke to said this cycle can feel even more tiring when you keep matching with people who don't want the same things as you. Like people looking for just hookups when you want something more long-term.
So the low period has kind of been like when you go on the app, you see someone that is your age and they're still figuring out their dating goals. I'm like, why are you on the app if you don't know what you want?
But whether we hate them or love them, apps have found a spot in dating culture today. So how can we use them in a healthier way? The experts we spoke to said there's some steps that you can take. First, pause the app or delete it. Either way, just take a break. Second, don't use multiple apps and don't talk to a bunch of people at once. That can feel overwhelming. Next, don't use the apps when you're already feeling stressed or tired. Yes, that means not checking them while at work. If you have a tendency to binge on the apps, consider using a timer to limit your use. And finally, try to be more aware about how the apps make you feel and what your limits are.
Don't judge yourself, don't shame yourself, just know how you operate.